Good morning, everyone. I'm Dr. John Pearce, postdoctoral researcher with the Aphasia CRE, and I co-host this seminar series with Dr. Rebecca Sullivan. Before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands across Australia and pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging, and any Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islanders people joining us today. I'm joining you today from Boonwurrung country, part of the Kulin Nation. Our privilege today for seminar series number 60 to hear from Dr. Abi Roper, who will be presenting From Search to Speech, Understanding the Experience and Accessibility of Everyday Technologies for People with Aphasia. Dr. Abi Roper is a speech and language therapist and research fellow at City St George's, University of London. She qualified as a speech and language therapist in 2008 and completed her PhD in 2016. Abi's work sits across computing, health and communication science, and past projects have included topics such as computer gesture therapy for people with severe aphasia, online assessment tools for sign language users, virtual therapy environments, digital accessibility, and creative technologies for people with aphasia. The interdisciplinary work has the voices of lived experience at its heart and commonly includes co-design, collaborative presentation, and co-publication with people living with aphasia. She's a proud member of both the City St George's University of London Aphasia Lab and the Centre for Human-Computer Interaction Design at City St George's. Last year, Abi chaired the British Aphasiology Society International Conference in Dundee, Scotland. The proudest moment from the conference was standing back at the conference celebration to see clinicians, researchers, and members of the aphasia community from local, national, and international contexts, all hand in hand, joining in with a Scottish ceilidh. Welcome, Abi. I know it's a little bit late for you from the other side of the world, so thanks for joining us today. Oh, I'll let you share your slides.
Great. I'll show my slides and you can let me know if you can hear me and if you can see them, and we'll go from there.
Yep, that's partway there. Just got that box on the screen.
How's that?
Yes, good. There's just one in the middle, but I think that's going to disappear in a moment. Yep, great. All right, take it away. Thank you.
Thank you. So, hello, I'm Abi. I'm a speech and language therapist, as John said. I'm speaking to you from London today. I'm based at City St George's, University of London, as a workplace. I live in Dundee, so I spend my time between London and Dundee. My talk today is called From Search to Speech, and it's about understanding the experience and the accessibility of everyday technologies for people with aphasia. As John mentioned, I'm a member of City Aphasia Lab, which is our speech and language therapy team, but also the Human-Computer Interaction Design team at City St George's, University of London. And I also hold associate staff status at the University of Dundee, which is where I live for most of the time. So let me tell you about my book. Starting with the definition of aphasia, I know a lot of people who are watching this talk will know what aphasia is. I'm going to reflect on a definition that was a consensus definition from the International Aphasia Researchers. It talks about the effects that aphasia has and points out that aphasia masks competence and it affects functioning across relationships, life roles, activities, by social inclusion, access to information services, equal rights, community culture. Still with me, John?
Yes, audio is a little bit choppy, but I think it's all right.
Okay. And so it's particularly highlighted bit access to information and services, which I'm thinking about tonight. That it's everyday technologies and how we can access everyday technologies. And then secondly, we have a more classic condition definition of aphasia, which defines as a language impairment, which is called and has impacts and makes things difficult in reading, writing, speaking, and listening. This is a basic definition that you might hear an everyday conversation. And perhaps unsurprisingly, once you have acquired a difficulty with reading, writing, speaking, and listening, this is often accompanied by a resultant challenge with technology use. And so you'll see these characters here in the slide at this point, and then they'll feature again later on throughout the talk. So what I'm going to do is talk to you about everyday technology interactions from the lens of three particular studies that I've been involved in at City St George's, University of London. The first of these is information search. The second of these is a study about data visualization. And the third of these is a study about voice technology. So if you're watching this back and you want to skip forward to the bit that's about information search, the Google bit, zoom forward until you see slides which have got the magnifying glass on. And if you want to watch the data visualization bit, zoom forward to the graph slides. And if you want to watch the voice technology bit, zoom forward to the Alexa slides. But if you're here for the whole journey, then welcome. Thank you for staying. And let me tell you a bit more about the 3 points I'm going to talk about. These research projects have some general methods that have come as a result of us doing this technology and speech and language therapy combined research. And some of the key approaches that we use in these research projects are usability testing and co-design. So if you're looking for a primer on usability testing as a method, which is what we've used in both the information search and the data visualization study, then you can consult our paper, Usability Testing and Aphasia Perspective. And there'll be a link to this in the references on these slides. Or if you're interested in co-design, which is one of the other main features of our research projects that we do, we wrote a paper in 2015 and we're planning on doing an update to this soon. But for now, the 2015 paper is a co-design methods paper that should give you some good insights into using the processes of co-design within a technology development space with people with aphasia. So let's get started on the information search study. John, can you still hear me?
Yep, sounding good.
Great. Okay. Off we go. Information search. So it's part 1 of 3. This study is called The Internet is Hard is Words, investigating information search difficulties experienced by people with aphasia and strategies for combating them. So the authors on this paper are Vasiliki Kladelciu, Stefan Macri, Sylvia Frankowska-Takari, Timothy Neat, Andrew McFarlane, Stephanie Wilson, and me. And this is a piece of research which we published. There's a full paper which I'll link to at the end again. And this was presented at the top tier human computer interaction conference. It's called CHI in last year's conference. So this has been published in the computing domain, but members of outside of that might not have heard about it. So I thought I'd share the outcomes from it. So when I'm talking about the everyday task and everyday technology of this first research study, I'm talking about search. And by search, we mean the process of looking something online, looking for some information online, or to use another kind of common synonym, Googling. So this is a study about Googling. To do this, we did a usability testing approach, working with 12 people who have mild or moderate aphasia. And each person would work for 1 session with a speech and language therapist to sit at the computer and go through 2 activities. The first activity was a prescribed task, and they were asked in that first activity to do a search about heroic people and their acts. And the screen was recorded. And after they'd done that, the speech and language therapist facilitator asked them and put down into their experience. The second activity, the second task, was one where the participant chose what they were going to search for. So an example here is that somebody said they wanted to find a new family car. And so we did some adaptations to the traditional usability testing methods for the purposes of this to support access for collaborators with aphasia. The tasks were made accessible by being facilitated by a speech and language therapist for the first part of it. Well, for the process. Written and verbal formats of information were presented. Simple language was used. Visual aids, repetition, and extra time was factored into the process to support people to access these tasks. In terms of the data collection, video recordings of the screen capture were recorded, the audio, and a webcam. And then at the end of it, the data for all 12 people doing these two tasks was analysed using inductive, qualitative, thematic analysis. So what I'm going to do now is show you a little snippet of data from two participants who have aphasia. And one is a clip of somebody talking about how they went about doing a search for somebody heroic and heroic acts. And you'll see snippets from their webcam, from their screen recording. And the second is a different participant doing the user-led search task. And you'll see him using the search to try and find a new car. And it's very interesting to watch, to reflect as you watch these about the specific techniques and barriers and challenges and approaches that each of these participants adopts when they're doing search. So hopefully this video will play for you and you'll be able to hear it.
I googled heroes for women
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and come out with 50 heroes. Difficult.
Difficult,
It's
right? Mm-hmm.
it's just
Okay.
reading. It's just tiring.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
It's
Yeah.
struggle.
Mm-hmm. So you find reading difficult, very difficult, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No, bit boring. Waiting. I'm waiting. I can't waiting these things now. So another one.
Mm-hmm.
Next one as well. I forget. I know that word as well. I'll both of them. Okay, first one is on. Yeah. Big, large family car. Oh, best large family car. Some words. Yeah, some words. Some words. That's probably says my car. Really, it's the same. Back things.
Hatchback.
I think it's quite good. This car, it's probably a little cheaper. I think.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so that was the video, and it showed you a
I
little
Googled.
insight into two participants and how they did search in relation to the two tasks that were set. So analysis of this data showed specific barriers, highlighted some specific barriers, which perhaps might not be surprising to you to learn that some of the barriers to search for the participants with aphasia were word finding, they're recalling words from memory to type in, formulating a query to type into a search bar, and then spelling the query accurately. After the query prompt had been typed in, the next stage was interpreting the search results, and that created a challenge. And keeping track of the pages that had been visited or what you're exploring involves going forwards and coming back quite a lot, and that posed a challenge for some participants. And then, perhaps unsurprisingly, as you heard from that first example, reading and comprehending text often search results present us with lots and lots of written information. And if lots of written information is overwhelming or challenging or tiring, then facing a search can be quite an exhausting process. There weren't just barriers, however. The research participants came up with some lovely workarounds. One of the workarounds that people used was to use domain knowledge. So if you couldn't come up with the specific brand of motorcycle, for example, you might put a generic word in, you might put like motorbike, and then another feature like axle or something, some key components in to help you find a specific motorcycle that you were trying to refer to. People also made use of autocomplete. So when you'd started typing and the search bar generated another response, that was useful. In the first clip, we saw the research participant using the instant answer. So whatever the first generated thing was, the summary, that was used as a good starting point to explore and try and solve that search task. Reading summaries and then using the images, as you saw the second participant going, some words, there's a picture, some words. So you see people kind of searching through for kind of key anchors. Skipping text. The participant in the first clip also used text to speech when she was using search on her phone. So she would use, because reading was tiring for her, she would use the text to speech to read the outcomes aloud to her to help her access them more easily than doing reading visually. And then we saw some anchoring to familiar words, so hatchback and in that second clip. So using the domain knowledge, instant answers and familiar words were some of the workarounds that people came up with. And the other nice example that we saw in that clip was sort of opening the results in separate tabs so that you didn't have to go backwards and forwards. You could do your task of generating your options, and then you could review the options one page at a time. And people use some quite creative use of like text bars to keep something they'd written held in place so that they could copy and paste between different pages. So the researchers in this paper came up with some design implications for technology researchers to say that based on what we've learned, we suggest that technology developers thinking about how to support search for people with aphasia, support people to queue and find words. They support people to not make mistakes in the first place, but if they do make a mistake, to find their way back easily from that mistake. They suggest browsing as an alternative to searching. So reviewing some existing content is a bit easier than having to generate content from thin air. And supporting the interpretation of search results and web pages. So we did see some little glimpses of that with a quick answer on the top example of the 50 heroic women acts. If you want more information about this is just like a whistle-stop tour of the paper, then you can look up this paper. It's called The Internet is Hard, It's Words, and the DOI and the reference are provided here and at the end of the paper. So that is our bit about search. John, are you still with me?
Yes.
Great. Okay. Ready for more?
Yep.
Okay, let's think now about data visualization. So we've moved on to another study now. This one is part of a big project that I'm a member of, a co-researcher on, a co-investigator on, and this is called the DARA project. And the DARA project aims to understand data visualization from the lens of people who have a language disability. So that includes us working with people with aphasia who have acquired a language disability later in life, and also people with developmental language disability who have a primary disability, but they've grown up with it. So we're working with two different groups of people who have a language disability as their primary disability. And this project is led by Stephanie Wilson. Other members of the study team are Joe Wood, Madeline Cruz, Nikki Botting, Neve Devan, Ulfa Octaviani, and Apollo Karkanavatis, who sorry, Apollo. this study is funded by the UK Research Institute for Engineering and Physical Sciences Research Council. Okay. On the right here, you can see a paper, which is the one that I'm going to talk about. That's just coming out in a special issue that's going to be coming out in the next couple of months about accessible data visualization. We're very excited because that special issue about inclusive data experiences, ours is the only one we anticipate. We're excited to see that language difficulty is going to be covered in this data visualization report, and I'll explain a bit more about that in the next slide. So when I talk about data visualization, what do I mean? So by data visualization, we mean things like graphs, charts, maps, and more. So for example, what you can see here is a map, and a map is a great example of data visualization because it presents you with multiple layers of data in one visual format. And so, for example, on this map, we can see that there is 2 potential routes to Wells Street. One is marked in red, suggesting it might be busy with traffic. There's an alternative diversion that will get you there. We can also see that there's some green areas, which suggest those might be parks. And there's some other features, some miles per hour. So a map is a very common example of data visualization that we all come across on a fairly regular basis. Other examples of everyday technology that uses data visualization include things like our step counts and our fitness apps, which show us graphs and charts and numbers. Things like this that you see on a public transport, showing you how busy different carriages in the train are, where you're located, fire exits and things like that. And things like your car dashboard. Those are all examples of data being presented visually. Now, just before I go on, I'm just going to mention the fact that there is a lot of research about how to make data visualization inclusive out there. And the majority of that research functions on like, how can we make graphs and charts and maps inclusive to people with visual impairments or visual disabilities? And that's great. There's a lot of research that covers that. And it's very field. We did a scoping review to see how much information is out there about accessibility of visualization for people with language disabilities. We are very short. There's a very limited amount, and that's part of the rationale for this study, is because we know these are everyday things that people are encountering, and we don't at the moment have a good understanding of how accessible such things are for people with language disabilities, and if there are ways that we can make them optimal and accessible, because we use these things to navigate our everyday life, to make decisions, to extract and make important meaning. So at the start of this project, to find out a bit more about whether people with aphasia or with developmental language disorder, or DLD as we use it to shorten, are using data visualization or encountering data viz in everyday life, we worked with 8 people altogether, 4 who have aphasia and 4 with DLD, and we used an ethnographic study approach with a diary study for this. What this looked like is the person came into us and they had a briefing, and we spoke to them about, here's what data visualization is. And now we want you to go away for a week, have a look and make a note or take a photo or write down or capture in whatever way is appropriate for you. Send us a WhatsApp, any of these ways of the different types of data viz that you encounter in your life over the next week that you're happy to share with us. And people went away and they did that. They kept a visual diary for a week of the different types of data viz they were encountering and using in their daily life. They came back and had an interview with Neve and chatted about the things in their diary to say, oh, well, I saw this, and I used it this way. Those interviews were then analysed and the scripts were analysed, and we wrote up the paper that you saw. So I'm going to show you what some of the findings of that. So perhaps unsurprisingly, the 8 people who we interviewed did use data visualization. So people with language disability are using data visualization. Most common type of data visualization that people were using was navigation apps. People used it for travel, but also health and fitness data visualizations, utility bills managing and monitoring energy use, productivity, reading the weather maps, shopping, and then smaller categories that we saw a fewer examples of business, education, finance, and food and drink. And the different types of tasks people were using these data visualizations for were often making sense of how far away something was, or the scale of data, or the scale of data, the magnitude, deviation, so how pieces of data differed, part to whole comparisons, which is just like pie charts. People were using data visualizations to understand change over time, a little bit for correlation, ranking, and flow. And then what were people saying about how they use data visualization? So this first example here is a woman who's talking about having an app which shows you where the other people that you know, where their phone is on a map. So this person says, when my daughter starts to come back on the map, that's good. Then I have to ottolenghi, which means that she's got to start cooking her dinner because her daughter's on her way home. And then another person had Waze, which is an example that we saw at the beginning, which supports you to navigate traffic and find the least busy routes to places. But they weren't actually using it for that. They were using it purely as a map. So the investigator said, so you use it for the map? Thank you. Yeah. Do you ever use it to find a route? No. So we saw examples of data viz being kind of repurposed or used for ways other than the primary intended use. Somebody else said that they have a list of reminders that they do every day and they use their sort of calendar app every day. And then there's one person talking about how they manage their pension. So they use graphs and charts to say, I self-invest my pension. As long as it's going up or across, I stay in. And once it starts coming down, I get out. And then when it goes back up again, I get back in. So that's what people were saying about it. And I had a look through our write-up of this to pull out some of the specific barriers that people identified. So we know that people had specific barriers to search, and now we're thinking about the sort of barriers that people might have seen in relation to data visualization. So, unsurprisingly, when text was complex, that made data visualization harder to make sense of and to use. When there was too much information, so this person says, it sort of makes sense. A lot of that stuff doesn't need to be there. So a lot of people report this kind of noise and overwhelm, making data visualizations harder to interpret. When a data visualization was presented in an unpredictable or an unfamiliar way, so when the axes on your chart behave in a way that doesn't go in the order that you're used to expecting them, that throws people. People rely a lot on familiarity and kind of learned approaches to reading different data visualizations. And when use is time constrained, so when you need to read a chart because you've got to catch a train or something. So during real-time navigation, having to negotiate data visualizations can create quite an emotional response. So this person said, I get anxious right inside my chest. I feel it all. My body's heating up and I just get, but I don't know. What's the worst that can happen? Why does my body do? I know it's that flights or something. So that fight or flight emotion being experienced when you're coming face to face with certain types of data visualization that feel challenging in a time constrained way. But just as the case for the search, we saw workarounds. So one of the tools that people use really effectively to help decode data visualizations was to use color knowledge to infer or decode the meaning. So red typically means bad, for example, means go, or the specific logos or color coding associated with a brand might be used to attach meaning to different elements of a chart, for example. Something else that people did was they would focus on one specific part. If it's a big data viz, they might just look at, like, for example, one weather symbol in a complex weather chart and go, right, well, I'm just going to look at the bit that's directly over my bit of the map. That's the only thing I'm going to pay attention to in this data visualization. And then familiarity, perhaps unsurprisingly, once you had gotten used to using something and you used it repeatedly, that familiarity and training and repeated exposure makes you more confident in interpreting information from it. So let's say you use Google Maps regularly, or you use your fitness app all the time. That becomes a lot more user-friendly than if you are encountering it for the first time. And this old classic that we see elsewhere in every kind of walk of life, really. If you're not sure how to do it, get support from a friend or family member. So you might, we had an example of somebody who was getting stressed out, trying to use the public transport system, and they called their daughter, who came and met them and helped them out. So if you want a bit more information about that particular study, you can read it in this publication, Experiencing Data Visualization with Language Disability. And there might be some interest, we might want to talk later on about the developmental language component in relation to that. That was our early study. I'm just going to highlight then a forthcoming study for DARA, which is we've completed since, and we're analysing at the moment. So we've got some more detailed results coming from. And this one followed the vein of our first usability study. We had 10 people with aphasia, 9 people with developmental language disorder, and 10 people with no language disability. Each of these people were presented with a series of data visualizations and also data physicalizations, and then asked questions about them. And those data were transcribed and are currently being analysed, much in the way that the search study was. Some of the examples of the data visualizations we presented included sort of a simple bar chart where we'd ask people, can you tell us which mortgage repayments are the most expensive? A interactive line chart, a map. This is a complicated COVID map of different regions of the UK. We also had these physicalizations, which is another way of presenting data in a physical and tangible, touchable way. So you might ask to put your Lego blocks somewhere on this grid, depending on how much sleep or how much caffeine you've had. And then this lovely example of knitted data. Each of these is a knitted scarf, and the columns or rows represent a certain heart rate, so beats per minute of heart rate, and green or pale green is kind of a resting heart rate, and red is really stressful. So this is a 24-hour period. Each scarf represents 24 hours, and you can try and make sense of the data of that depending on across the time scale. So people were exploring different types of data visualization. And I've kind of reflected on some of the early indications of what some of the barriers and facilitators are. These analyses are ongoing at the moment, so look out for a paper which will give you the full results in the coming days. But for now, perhaps unsurprisingly, some of the barriers were when there were too much information. And a facilitator that responded to that was when there was just about the right amount of info. And I call that the sort of the three bears effect. We don't want too much, we don't want too little, you want just the right amount. Some of the barriers, again, because people rely very effectively on using colour to decode meaning, when colour was applied in kind of a haphazard way to a data visualization, people tended to assume it had meaning and apply meaning to it and infer meaning to it, when actually that just distracted from the continuity and the meaning of the data representation. So things that make data viz accessible are consistent and familiar colours. When labeling was incomplete or unclear, that was unhelpful, and using everyday vocabulary was a bit of a counter to that. Keep an eye on dara.org.uk for further results. So that's the end of my data viz bit. John, are you still there?
Yep, connection's good.
Okay, right. And so now I'm going to talk about part 3, which is our studies about voice technology, another example of everyday technology. And this is some work that I'm doing with Stephanie Wilson, Katerina Hillary, Sarah Northcott, Amy Hanschel, and Elaine Skogel. And on the left, you can see a poster that I presented at IARC a couple of years ago about some early Alexa stuff that we did. And on the right, you can see the Figshare page, which is a collection of the different research findings and things that have come out of this research that I'll share a link to coming up. So this everyday task, we've had search, we've had data viz. This everyday task is voice technology. And by voice technology, I mean Alexa, tools like that, everyday voice interaction devices, Siri, all these kind of things. So your smart speakers, the things that you speak to and instruct using your voice rather than typing into them. And to explore this with people with aphasia, we adopted a co-design process, and our co-design group comprised 7 people, 4 people with aphasia, 2 speech and language therapy researchers, and 1 human-computer interaction researcher. We had a series of 5 2-hour workshops together, and then people did homework in between, all of us doing our various different little tasks and jobs. The sort of tasks we looked at in our co-design process, we were testing, learning about, discussing, and reporting experiences with Alexa. So I'm just going to introduce you to our co-design team now. These are they, and you'll see this is a piece of research that we undertook in Dundee. So you'll see a little example of the University of Dundee poking up in the background if you pay close attention.
Wendy.
Amy, Esther,
Claire.
Elaine, Abby.
Volume outside on a Sunday.
So that's Billy, Wendy, Esther, and co. All of us doing our co-design bit. And what you can see here are some snapshots of us doing the various co-design activities. And that essentially involved us sitting together and exploring and using very interactive methods to express our thoughts and feelings about different types, about our interactions and priorities for voice technology. So you can see on the screen in the middle here that Billy is using something called a Alexa Fire Stick, and this offers the ability to speak into a microphone and to hold the button down so that you can keep the microphone open for as long as you want, which means it doesn't time out if you're trying to think about what you want to say. It also affords the option that you get visual feedback on the TV screen that shows you what the outcomes of your voice interaction have been. We identified some barriers through this co-design process. One of them would be that systems would time out or stop listening. One would be that they might not recognize speech, which wasn't in the kind of center of kind of typical. Another is that speech devices can place a lot of demand. They speak out loud to you, and you've got to process a lot of spoken verbal information, and that can be challenging. And there can be a high demand for like complicated speech output. So from a traditional smart speaker, you might use a wake word, and that will involve you coming up with that wake word, saying, for example, Alexa, before you even do your prompt. So before you even say your phrase, put the lights on or play this song for me, you have to do this all in a short time and add a wake word on the beginning. But the main barrier that the co-designers identified in relation to speech technology was that technology developers not aware of it. So some of the workarounds that came out of this work were, as I mentioned before, using a microphone with a button on it that keeps the microphone open. So for example, in the Alexa Fire Stick. Rehearsing important commands. So if it's important for you to be able to ask to put Kate Bush on, you can rehearse Alexa play Kate Bush as a command. The good thing about the Fire Stick is that it presents visual info, but there are now other smart speakers which have screens as well, which mean that you can also read text. So if multimodal information is a supporter, you can make use of that if you're using voice technology. And then you can even use interactive AAC devices, augmentative and alternative communication devices, to speak your text out loud and to command the system using that. So you've got an example here of Wendy pressing the button to show, to tell Alexa what to do. I mentioned that the key barrier was that technology developers didn't know about aphasia, and the route that we took to address this is to come up with a series of short, informative videos which talk about aphasia and talk about the experience of using smart technology like Alexa when you've got aphasia. And so this is Claire with a direct appeal to the technology developers at the end of our video series.
We would like to give access to everyone. Can you help us, please?
Alexa, stop.
So as you see, there's a couple of different ways you can use Alexa, and they might not be the same as the ways you'd anticipated using that device. If you want to access those videos, they're available on a YouTube playlist, and you can share them with anyone you'd like to. Any technology developers you'd like to educate about aphasia, please feel free to share, or any friends and family. You can have some ideas about how people are using the different technology and workarounds that we spotted. If you want any more information about this project, the third of the 3 components, you can visit this link on Figshare and look for the accessible voice interaction technologies for aphasia. So there we go. I've whizzed through my 3 categories, and John, are you still with me?
Yes, absolutely.
Right, okay. What I'm going to do now is I'm just going to hopefully draw it all together in a lovely, tasty bunch of take-home information. And so my reflections from doing these 3 different projects that I've worked on about supporting everyday technology use. So let's say we've done these bits of research now. What does that mean for anybody who wants to go about thinking how to improve access to technology? Here are some of the suggestions that sort of boiled down to the workarounds that we've come up with. So don't start with a blank page. Exploring is easier than searching. Think about when you're using a piece of technology, can you make it multimodal in some way? So if there's a bit of text, can you add an image to it? Or if there's a bit of text, can you read it out? Or if it's reading it out, can you add a bit of text? Can you create additional layers of consistent supporting information using whatever device that you are exploring? As with so many things, having time to process is important. So for example, on the smart speakers, the typical 8-second or 3-second or however long it is window for speaking might not be sufficient for somebody to use it successfully. So are there ways, like pressing a button to hold down the microphone, that you might be able to support or extend the interactions? Something else that came out is draw on the existing knowledge. So if what we saw in the search example was that the participant was mentioning, oh, I've got a hatchback, I've got a Skoda, and that was giving some anchor points to help engage with that task. So, and we found this a lot in the data visualization tasks as well. When somebody's talking about a topic that they really care about or that they see themselves in, it might be how many steps you've done in a day is something that they follow particularly, or it might be that the map is of a location of somewhere they've been to. Then that gives you an extra hook and an extra incentive to try and get to the bottom of this challenging task. Find your tool of choice and become familiar. So much like anything else, practice makes perfect. It's likely to be challenging using any technology for the first time, but we know that with practice it can become better. So that's my NAF animation suggesting you practice. And number 6, find ways to focus on one thing at a time. So if you're encountering something for the first time and you're trying to make sense of it, can you find a keyword that will help anchor you or find your route into it? Or can you find a weather symbol that will support you to engage in the interaction or extract understanding from it? So there you go. Those are my 6 kind of boiled down messages about workarounds and things. Explore is better than search. Make it multimodal. Find ways to give time. Start with something familiar. Practice, practice, practice. And then find a key in that technology that will help you find the way in. That's the end of my slides now. Thank you very much, John. And here are the references, which I'll get you to share. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Abby. Really interesting and very, everyday sort of stuff that the world takes for granted. But there's a whole chain of abilities that are assumed in doing, a search or. Oh, sorry, I have turned you off, I think.
Hello, I'm back. I tried to turn it on, but it didn't work.
Yeah, no, that was my bad. I'm curious to start with what the reaction was to your presentation on the search at the conference, and I know I've found that tech people can be quite mystified by aphasia because it's not visual impairment, it's not intellectual disability, and it's not just a motor thing. It's like you have to explain that this person knows what they want to say, but they can't just type it and they can't just say it. What was their reaction, or did you get many questions? And
I wasn't there for the presentation of that one, but I have done very similar presentations in exclusively tech contexts. And I think you're right. Very often there is a kind of, oh, I hadn't come across this before. And then I find that sharing not just a data or a description, sharing video or kind of humanizing the condition, either by co-presenting with somebody, that's something that we've done before, or including video footage and like spoken excerpts, video clips from people or quotes, is a really good way of supporting people to sort of open their eyes to this. And then often once people have their eyes opened to this condition, which is way more prevalent than a lot of other conditions, they become invested in it. And so it often opens up a lot of goodwill and a lot of interest. And often some misconceptions as well. So people might kind of talk about, oh, can we use sign language and kind of other things that potentially won't necessarily be supportive. But it's usually met with a kind of a warm interest and intrigue. Yes.
Yeah. And you're right. There's a kind of reaching for what seem like obvious solutions, but actually are not, like, can we just use emojis and it's like, well, if you're creating a language out of symbols for language, and therefore it's,
yes, and I think there can be a slight, historically, not so much now, but historically there was a kind of a tendency for technology developers to assume they could come up with a solution without consulting
Yeah.
people who are affected. And so we do a lot of promotion of supporting people to engage and kind of explaining how you can make processes that you would use in other situations to check that your tech works accessible to people with aphasia. So you can check whether it works for people with aphasia as well. So there's a bit of an education about the fact that don't just exclude somebody from thinking about this technology because your methods don't accommodate them. Here are some routes to involving people.
Don't just try to solve it off your own. Yep.
Yes, yeah.
One of the supporting strategies for search you recommended was autocomplete. And I was just thinking that for some people that's great, and other people we're almost creating like a minimal pair if there's multiple suggestions.
It can be error prone, yeah.
Yeah. Have you come across that much or?
I think it can be the case that those methods work well for some people and for others they don't. So it's not definitive. Like, so we did see, for example, in the kind of workarounds that the things that helped some people wouldn't be useful. So it's not, I guess, the set of tips and workarounds aren't guaranteed to support everybody, and some, as you say, can be a barrier. So, and I think that's often the way. Similarly, with things like in the data visualization, color is supportive for some people, but then loads of the data visualization research talks about that exists that isn't to do with aphasia, talks about don't rely on color because lots of people have color blindness. So there are these kind of other or potentially use this range of colors. So there are potentially some like conflicting guidelines that come from other accessibility domains that potentially introduce more noise. So, for example, having long written labels to support a screen reader user next to an image can introduce lots of noise that's actually really unhelpful, and really detailed information becomes unhelpful. So there's this interesting tension that we can see between people's needs and what's recognized and what's known and what's perceived to be the way you make this accessible is this. And the truth is that the way you make this accessible for one person is this. For someone else, it might be a bit different, and it actually might make things a bit harder. But
it's actually a question I had for you was that color one, because red and green are so useful for positive, negative, stop, go. It's like immediately intuitive, but of course, red and green are the two worst colors you can put for someone with a color blindness. So then they recommend like a blue, yellow, and it's like, well, that doesn't tell the story.
And the challenge then is that you might have an association with blue, yellow. And if you're particularly relying on the color scheme to extract your meaning rather than any of the other elements, like potentially like verbose labels, then you end up with this challenge of that's actually unhelpful. You might be misapplying a reading to that, thinking, oh, that must mean something to do with sunshine. For us, for the scarf example, different people attributed different shades to having different meanings, and that actually impinged on their ability to extract meaning from it. And so I think one of the things that we see is that creating a bit of meaning and reinforcing it with a couple of modalities and making sure they are all coherent together and don't kind of contradict each other, because when they kind of contradict each other, that creates additional language processing or noise in kind of understanding things.
Do you think that's, in the past, accessibility sort of been simplified. So it's like, well, you meet these guidelines and then it is accessible. Whereas really, from what you're saying, it's not that it's accessible now. It's like you need a menu of possible modifications to make it accessible for different people. And do you think getting the developers' heads around that kind of is a barrier? But it's not one size fits all.
Yeah, there is a really interesting discussion around universal design about potentially, because that's one of the other things that sometimes come up if you talk about this. You say, if you make this easier for someone with aphasia to understand, then potentially it's easier for everyone to understand. So, for example, if we're simplifying the information or whatever, or we're making bullet points information, that does improve the accessibility for a lot of people, but then potentially it is making it difficult for somebody else. And one of the things about the guidelines, the accessibility guidelines that you mentioned, so there's a set of guidelines called the WCAG guidelines, and they have these processes whereby you can go through a tick list and you can say, right, I have added alt text to all of my images. I have made the features of my website tabbable so that if you press a tab, they will go through in a sensible order. And that will support somebody who is using a non-conventional, like a scanning device or a mobility difficulty to track through your website. It will support somebody who wants an audio description of images on your website. And those are testable. So you can run those things through machines and the machine can test, is it compliant? Is it not compliant? Things like cognitive or linguistic accessibility aren't easily rateable. You can't easily say you're compliant. So often for something to be basic compliance, it kind of features those restrictions that are machine checkable and that are easily countable. But the cognitive or linguistic stuff are often like optional extras. So there's it's sort of the measurability of it, just like you said before, going back to how to get your head around this as a developer trying to accommodate somebody's needs. It's much less tangible and mapped out as a space compared to some of the other disciplines and accessibility research. But that's hopefully the reason that this research is important, is because we're starting to map out. It's more naive than some of the other accessibility research, but the more we can start to map it out and give people basic premises that they can start to adhere to or abide by, hopefully the awareness and kind of representation and needs meeting will increase.
Yeah. Yep. Do you think, or do you have any thoughts on whether there are AI sort of possible functions to either enhance accessibility at the user side or to help developers, do some of that testing and building of more accessible options for people with aphasia?
Yeah, well, AI is one of those things that obviously you've done lots of great exploration of and thinking about, and you'll have, I'm sure, kind of a very advanced understanding of some of the possibilities in this space. Working with Caitlin Longman at the Stroke Association with a group called Aphasia and Accessible Voices, she has I've presented some stuff with Caitlin about people's experiences of using AI, and a lot of people that she spoke to are using AI like your chat engines, your ChatGPT and things like that, or even your Alexa, to quite effectively shortcut very complicated things. Okay, so for one example, there's a lady who finds setting the heating system in her house very complicated, but she could just say, Alexa, turn the heating up, because that's been programmed, and it makes that complex cognitive process easier. There's someone else who is, potentially getting a long, complicated email or reading, and then they could just put that through an engine and say, can you simplify this for me? And they can get some key moments. And so what we're seeing people using is definitely the beginnings of people feeling boosted by this. But there's a lot of uncertainty and fear around AI, because reporting around AI can often focus on it being used for ill. So I think there is an importance that people develop an understanding of what it is and what it isn't, and that they have an understanding of its biases and its flaws and its limitations and its risks as well, about kind of sharing personal data and what the implications of that for, and how you can protect and limit yourself and when you can believe something. And one of the gents in the presentation that I gave last week with a colleague was saying, if it looks dodgy, it probably is, right? So just use your spidey senses. But if something feels off about it, step back. And if there's kind of a mission critical or a very important health or financial or similar issue, always
Yep.
seek an external voice. But at the same time, it can be great for writing poems, getting you started on challenging bits of writing.
Yeah.
So we're at the beginning, but it's a moving landscape, and it's really interesting to think about how it can be used. And I think one of the
Yeah.
things that I'm seeing in the data viz space, for example, because you can, ask AI to interpret things for you, is sort of a lack of confidence in how certain you can be about the reliability of what it's telling you.
Yes.
So people aren't sure that what it's telling you is right. Sometimes it will give you an answer even if it doesn't know the right answer or everything, just because it wants to please you.
With no indication that it's uncertain. It just continues to be confident.
Exactly. Yeah, I kind of use the metaphor that it's like an overconfident person in a job interview. They're like, right, what
Yep.
do you want me to say? Yes, definitely, I can
Yeah,
do
I can
that.
do everything. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's right. That's a good
and
one.
then you kind of drill down a little bit further and think, oh no, actually, that was just that was
I like that.
one evening in Pizza Express that I was just volunteering cleaning the bins or something like that. And it's like, well, you're not a world expert in Italian cooking, then? No, okay.
No. The data visualization is just a fascinating area, and I dare say you guys are the first to look at it. But um, the usage of data viz during the week that you showed, that sort of chart of different uses, do you have a sense of whether that differed from people without aphasia? Are they relying on it more, or do you think it was sort of roughly similar to
So
the
I
rest
think
of the
we are
population?
seeing the latest study that we're doing across people with aphasia and DLD and people without a language disability. We're starting to get a bit more of a sense about insights. There were definitely uh, differences into how the three groups of people engaged and how successfully people can engage with this. And I mean, these are emerging findings, so I may yet stand corrected, but we do see a difference in the independent success of using a data viz to extract information. Perhaps
Yep.
unsurprisingly, people without aphasia or developmental language disability needed the least help and were able to accurately pull out information successfully. Then people with DLD and then people with aphasia were quite a long way behind, needed quite a lot more help and support. But we also saw that with help and support, everyone was able to do it, right? So this kind of indicates to me the role of support as being kind of an important role,
Yeah.
and kind of reaffirms the things that we know, that often cooperating and doing something as collaborating to achieve a
Yep.
goal can often be a really nice way of solving some of the challenges that aphasia presents. There is some interesting stuff coming about the type of data visualizations that different groups find preferable or not. And it does seem to be the beginning of something emerging that for people with aphasia who we spoke to, there's a certain confidence in understanding what charts do and how they work. And there's a kind of a base understanding in, right, well, I get the principle, I get the main premise of this. I might not be able to decode this, but I know a pie chart works in this way, or I know that a line
Yep.
chart works in this way. We, in the participants with developmental language disorder, we tended to see less confidence in that kind of overall understanding of what. So somebody with aphasia might have been confident in using all of these things, and then that's changed because of their aphasia. But potentially people with developmental language disorder who we worked with were never getting to the point where they feel confident
Yep.
in kind of grasping the whole picture. And so there's some interesting nuances coming out about
Yeah.
how the different groups are engaging. And I think we are seeing, I know Nicola Botting did some early statistical comparisons between kind of amount of prompts needed and levels of kind of accuracy without prompts. And there were some significant differences between the groups across those
Yeah.
different types of data visualization. So it's going to be interesting to see how that shakes out in the full
Yeah. Well,
analysis.
maybe one day there might be recommended, data viz techniques for different groups.
Yes, yeah, and I mean we're hoping very much that the one of the major outputs of the DARA project will be some meaningful recommendations. Or I've just been in a
Mm,
co-design session today, actually, looking at with collaborators with Aphasia, looking at how we can reinvent data viz, what kind of wacky new innovations or kind of
yeah,
what general principles can we implement that we can then share with data viz guidelines designers to say these are the routes to support access to this for people with language disabilities. So
yeah,
that's something. Hopefully, keep an eye on the DARA website over the next year, and you should get some of those coming your way.
yeah. Well, Abby, I've got a heap more questions, but I know it's late for you, so I'll just give you one more if that's okay. It's just around having too much information versus just the right amount. I mean, from what I've seen, sometimes you try to pare it back to just the right amount, and then people inevitably say, "Oh, can you add this? Oh, I can't see that." And it's just this sort of paradox where you don't want too many menus and options hidden away, but you want the right information there, but you don't want to skip out on information. I mean, any solutions for that or tips on that?
Well, reflections on that.
Yeah.
Um, Perhaps, just thinking today, we three or four different people looked at exactly the same set of data visualizations and wanted different things from them. Perhaps
Mm,
unsurprisingly, one said, "I need you to get rid of these things." One said, "I want more of these things."
yeah.
And so um, I don't think there's a one size fits all is the problem.
Yeah.
But Steph Wilson, who I've done lots of this work with, is very keen on kind of the ability for the user to tailor their experience.
Yeah.
So I think often the more of this sort of work that I do, the more I think I want to sort of have a path of least resistance through the middle that will work for
Yep.
somebody who doesn't want to do any interacting. But then if there's somebody who wants a bit more depth or needs a bit more information, the option for them
Yep.
to tailor it and say, so can you have like a route through this technology or whatever with 3 button clicks? That for some people is going to be the right amount of exertion that they
Yep.
need to not be overwhelmed. But then there might be other people who want more minutiae and want kind of more finer grained or want to be able to zoom in and kind of do kind of more interaction. And can you support them to then tailor things to their level? So it is like you say, it's kind of finding that sweet spot. I
Mm,
kind of aim to have the option to bring it up or down and try and find something in the middle that's kind of the general default that you can
yep.
simplify or scale up. That's kind
That's
of
a
where I'm sitting
fantastic
on it at the
principle,
moment.
actually. Yeah, yeah. No, it's good. That's quite helpful. Well, thank you again, Abby, for your time and uh, for presenting on that work, which I think really excited to see the next phases and some of the discoveries you're making in some pretty new spaces. So
Thank you very much for having me, and apologies for any technical difficulties that we've encountered along the way.
no, that's all right. Like you said, in your paper, the internet is hard.
Yes, it's words, it's hard. That's right.
Yep. So for anyone watching this, you're probably watching it on YouTube, and you can also keep up to date with the CRE through our blog and our other social media channels, particularly LinkedIn and our blog. Next month, we'll be hearing from Dr. Chelsea Larkman Beyond Language Barriers, from challenges to collaboration in interpreter-supported cross-linguistic aphasia therapy. So we hope to see you all then. Thanks very much. Oh, I'm